Welcome back. In today's episode, I'm going to share with you the 3 decisions that will determine your home's indoor air quality for at least the next 30 years. And if you're new here, I'm Christine, licensed general contractor here in Southern California and construction consultant on healthy homes nationwide, building homes right from the start. So indoor air quality is so important. It's not talked about enough, and it drives me bananas because the truth is you can have the best of the best roof and exterior walls and all this exterior insulation. You could hit it out of the park and you could still have a toxic home because your mechanical system is not doing its job. Not to scare you, but I'm going to empower you on how you can actually have a mechanical system that is paired with the performance of your entire home and not just an afterthought, because mechanicals are still hovering around bare minimums, and it's not what's going to lead to a healthier home. And I'll give you an example of how this is going to be a very prevalent problem if people just don't catch on to how important it is. So if we look at just building code, which I have shared is just bare minimum, it is like the lowest level that you could build a home without it falling apart. And when you look at building codes, there was, up until recently, no talk about how airtight a home should be. Now, in the name of energy efficiency, homes are getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And now we actually have guidelines around how airtight new construction homes need to be. And that is somewhere between 3 to 5 ACH 50. What that means is how many air exchanges with outdoor air are happening within your home. And so how much air through your exterior walls and just through gaps, holes, and crevices, how much air is coming into your home and being exchanged every hour. That is pretty darn tight compared to how homes were built 50 years ago. There was no blower door or air exchanges at all. Older homes that were not focused on air tightness, having air exchanges of like 10, 20, even 30, like they are just leaky as all heck. And now that we have really airtight homes mandated, your mechanical systems are so important. So 3 ways that you can really start to make some meaningful decisions and have like thoughtful conversations around the mechanicals in your home. This is primarily for new construction because we have these air tightness targets, but this also applies to renovations as well. So the first place that we need to start, every new construction project needs to start right here when you're talking about the mechanicals. And this just happened on a very large project that was in a cold climate, and there was no talk around the mechanicals until we were brought into the project. This project, unfortunately, we were brought into it as it was already under construction, and the homeowner had reached out to us because they felt like things were just going sideways. And we came in and they were going a little bit sideways, but nothing that we couldn't wrangle and get everyone on the same page. So this project was a large scale renovation, and it was stripped from the interior and the exterior, and they were going to do it right and get a brand new exterior on. And when we were having a mechanical discussion, I had asked for the manual J, the manual D, and manual S calculations along with the mechanical plans. And none of that existed. There was a mechanical plan that showed how all of the ductwork was going to be run. So my question was related to how was that designed? Where are the calculations that shared with you how much CFM is needed, how much fresh air, how much ventilation is happening within this home? And they didn't have it. They had shared that they based the ductwork and equipment off of a similar size home, which is not great news that you want to hear for your custom home. And so this project didn't have the calculations needed. But then when I had asked, what is the air tightness target of this home that you used? They didn't have any of that information. So we had to do some backtracking because it is impossible for a mechanical designer or even a mechanical installer to design any equipment in your home and know what is needed in your home unless they know how airtight it is. So every home should start with a benchmark. So the very first thing that we do when we're consulting on a project, no matter what stage it's in, is understand the performance guidelines. So we have a document, talks about the climate zone, where this is located, what are the baseline numbers, and then what are the good, better, best options from there. So in this climate, it was a 3 ACH 50. That is the code minimum. But how can we beef it up from there? So how airtight can we get? So the target ended up being 1 ACH 50, which is pretty darn tight. And from there, only from there is when you can start designing the mechanical system. So we got things back on track, but the first thing that you really need to establish is what are the performance targets for the home? Because your mechanical system is how your home is going to be handling indoor contaminants, indoor air quality, filtration, humidity, all of that. And a good analogy for this is our home should function just like our bodies. So our homes should not be just bringing in uncontrolled air. Our bodies are designed to have one centralized intake of air, and it has exhaust. We are not breathing through our skin. That is not how we're bringing in air. And if you are able to centralize and control the air, you are then in control of humidity, contaminants that are being brought in, and the filtration of all of it. So that's the best way that I could explain it, is when there's these talks about, no, you don't want an airtight home, you want a leaky home, you want a home that can breathe. None of that is actually what's going to lead to a healthy home. Because if you are not in control of the air that is coming into your home, you are bringing in uncontrolled air, maybe through your crawl space, through your exterior walls, through your attic. Like, you are not in control of any of that if it is, quote, leaky. This was also something that came up when we had the wildfires that happened in LA and took out the Palisades and Altadena. There are homes that are still standing that did not burn down, but through testing, the indoor air quality of these homes that are still standing is so terrible that they have to be either demolished or gut renovated because there's so much smoke damage, or they're finding heavy metals inside of these homes because they were not airtight. So although windows were closed, doors were closed, like nothing was open when these fires were happening. But what they're finding is that there was infiltration through the walls and around crevices. And I could go on about how important it is to actually build an airtight home, even if nobody cared about the health of their home. It's just, if you are in control of the air that is coming into your home, then you can actually filter it, manage the humidity, all of that. So step number 1 is you need to have these performance targets. Okay, then step 2. Once you've determined, let's say we're gonna shoot for like a really aggressive number of, you want to have your enclosure really airtight, it's gonna have only this one air exchange happening per hour. The next thing is, how are you going to get filtration? You absolutely need to have fresh air that is coming in. And how are you handling humidity? Because as things get more airtight, that just means that levels of CO, CO2, particulate, all of these things can build up in your home, especially if you have the washing machine going and 3 kids taking a shower and you're cooking, like that's going to increase humidity as well. So you have your performance targets. Step 2 is going to be related to your ductwork and making the decision on what type of ductwork it's going to be and where it is going to be. Those are 2 very important things that come during the design of the mechanicals. And when you look at the ductwork, there's 2 options. You can have flexible duct, which is what you see in 99% of homes that are built today. It's flexible and it has typically a pink fiberglass insulation wrapped around it. That is what's most commonly used. The other option is going to be rigid or metal ductwork. This is what you typically see in a restaurant that had like an exposed ceiling, or a commercial space. That's where they're using rigid ductwork. You need to decide what type of ductwork is suitable for you, because that's going to affect the design. It's also greatly going to affect the cost of the install. But to decide on what type of ductwork you're going to have, you need to know where it's going to be run. So are you running ductwork through a conventional crawl space that's ventilated? Is your ductwork going to be run up in the attic, where the attic is just conventionally ventilated and you have insulation at your attic floor? Where is the ductwork going to run, and what type of ductwork do you want to have? Between the two types, the flexible duct or the rigid duct, there is one type that can be cleaned in my mind. And I have had people disagree with me on this, but flexible ductwork cannot be decontaminated. If there is a mold event and you have particulate in your ductwork, flexible ductwork could be cleaned with like an agitator brush, but not decontaminated. There's no way to get in all of those grooves and crevices. And so that's where rigid ductwork is a really good winner. It also handles airflow better, and it's noisy. That is one thing. So we have to handle that through a different method, but knowing what type of ductwork you're going to have and how airtight it's going to be, because flexible ductwork is near impossible to get completely airtight, where rigid ductwork, that is what the install is designed to handle. Getting it airtight, it gets insulation on the exterior, and it's just better performing ductwork, and it's something that could actually be cleaned. So the rule of thumb when it comes to your ductwork is you do not want to have ductwork within an unconditioned space. No ductwork through an unconditioned crawl space, and no ductwork through an unconditioned attic space. That is just not a great idea, because these are uncontrolled environments. You could have leaky ductwork that is pulling in outdoor air, and that is how ductwork gets dirty real quick, is if it's run through an unconditioned space. So that's why this conversation around your ductwork is important. Are you one that is going to want to clean it every handful of years? Rigid ductwork is going to be a better use case for that. The other thing when it comes to your ductwork is being able to test it. Ductwork should go through commissioning, which is sometimes referred to as like a duct blast test, but you should be able to test the ductwork to see how airtight it is. Our rule of thumb just across the board in building better quality homes is trust but verify. Everything should be commissioned, independently inspected, leak tested, like all of these things should be a part of the project, and that goes for your ductwork as well. So that is why this is important for like the longevity of your home. If this is a forever type of home, rigid ductwork makes really good sense, so that you can be able to clean it, you can get it really airtight. But not all contractors are familiar with how to install rigid ductwork. So that's another conversation to have. And then the third important conversation or thing that you can be thinking through to really optimize your indoor air quality, like long term, aside from understanding your air tightness targets and how your enclosure is designed. And then step 2, understanding what type of ductwork you're going to have and what the maintenance and cleaning of it and how it's going to perform. Step 3 is all about filtration. You should be having whole home air filtration a part of the mechanical system. There was a recent project that came up, and within 2 weeks, there were 3 other projects that had this same scenario, and it blew my mind that this was advice that was out there. And it was 3 projects that recently came to us that had gone through full gut renovations. There was heavy mold instances in these projects where it was so riddled with mold that it made most sense to like gut it, strip it down, do a full interior remediation and renovation. So they had gone through all of the protocol from the mold inspector and the remediation company, and they got the green light to like build things back. And they were given the advice that when they were building back these homes, each 3 case, like completely unrelated, they were all given the advice to not install any mechanicals within their home, which blew my mind because these were older homes that were leaky and they were completely reconstructed to today's standards, airtight, and they were given the advice to not put any central heating or cooling within their home, and that the best way to optimize their indoor air quality, they were told to put in radiant heated floors, standalone air filtration devices in each bedroom, standalone dehumidifiers, and to install mini splits for cooling. That is not going to be the best strategy, in my opinion. One thing to know about mini splits is they are going to require so much maintenance. If you look at any mini split literature, and these are the type of systems that are just hung on the wall. You can often see them, they're 3-4 feet wide, and they have blades, and they're not ducted. So they're just blowing out cold air. These require cleaning and maintenance every 2 weeks. You have to make sure that the blades are dry and that the filters are clean, because they do not do anything to handle humidity. So there's no air movement like through ductwork to help dehumidify the air. And so it is just blowing out cold condensated air. And they require so much maintenance and are so notorious for mold. So I do not fall within the camp of thinking that forced heating and cooling or having ductwork in your home is going to make you sick. If it is done correctly and calculated correctly based off of your unique home, and it's monitored and maintained, and humidity and air filtration is all handled, you can have a healthy home that also has optimal indoor air quality, and you are living comfortably in your home. So when it comes to filtration, I wouldn't go for just having all these standalone air filters. There's nothing wrong with them, but I wouldn't rely on them. I myself have a whole home air filtration device within our mechanical system, and then I have 2 standalone little Air Oasis air filters within each of my children's bedrooms. One, it's kind of like a white noise effect, but it's just another level of filtration right within their rooms. I don't rely on them though for filtration. So having a whole home air filtration device allows for optimal filtration before the air is within your ductwork. That's where you want to have the filtration, not having a standalone filter that's just locally filtering the air, and then what's going back within the ductwork is dirty, dusty air. So having fresh air brought in, having a whole home air filtration device, and having a dehumidification strategy. Like, there should be parameters that are set for all of the mechanicals in your home so that you are going to have optimal indoor air quality for at least the next 30 years. But I've seen a lot of ductwork ripped out. I've seen a lot of bad mechanical designs, and I can tell you that even the best of the best homes that are being built, if they don't have optimal mechanicals, calculated, designed, thought through, it's very possible that homes can have contaminants and mold within their ductwork, even if they have an incredible enclosure design. So I don't want that for you or for anyone. So the episode today was really designed to encourage you to take the steps to make sure that what's happening with your enclosure or what's happening with your existing home is actually making sense with your mechanicals, because these 2 elements need to go hand in hand. They need to make sense together. And ultimately, you need to be making sure that all of the air within your home is getting filtered, handling the humidity levels, and also filtering out contaminants, while also bringing in controlled fresh air so that you're not relying on just windows or open doors to bring in fresh air. So I hope this was helpful for you today. Have these conversations with your entire architectural design team, mechanical designer, and we post new podcast episodes on YouTube every week so that we can get more content and helpful information out to you so you can confidently build your healthy home. But if you are in the process of planning a custom new build and you really want a high level of support, we have a link below where you can apply to consult with us, where we would be right by your side, collaborating with your architect, your builder. We can even help assemble your entire team. So click the link below, hit the apply button, and I will see you on the next episode.